pretty swift. The good thing is that once.
Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal podcast. I'm Renaldo McKenzie. I just got off the phone with Mr. John Anthony Castro because just now, recently, about 2 hours ago, an hour and a half ago, I was included in a tweet. Someone sent a tweet and forwarded a story. It's a New York Times story entitled "Prolific Challenger of Trump's Ballot Eligibility Faces Federal Tax Charges." I got news report that Mr. John Anthony Castro, whom we just interviewed the day before yesterday on to be part 6 of the Castro V Trump series, and we published the show yesterday night, and then suddenly I opened up my phone. I got news of a win of Mr. Castro's arrest, and it's a story that was sent to me by someone. But it's a story in the New York Times entitled "Prolific Challenger of Trump's Ballot Eligibility Faces Federal Tax Charges." So it was breaking news that was just coming in, that we were just becoming aware of at the Neoliberal Corporation and the Neoliberal podcast. And I promised that I would have followed up with Mr. Castro, but we did. But I said that this is what we knew. This is what we expect to happen when local citizens seek to take on the most powerful in society and do bold things in a society set up against going upstream. That's what we said, and they arrested him. The news is that they arrested him right after the interview that we did. And just so you know, so we did reach out to Mr. Castro, and I just literally got off the phone with him, and he allowed me to record the conversations, and we're going to play it back for you for this episode of the Neoliberal podcast. So this episode of the Neoliberal podcast, John Castro responds to the federal tax charges. And for those of us who don't know the story, it's in the New York Times. But I just got off the phone with Mr. Castro, who provided an update and explanation regarding the news article in the New York Times concerning his indictment on federal tax charges. Now, Mr. Castro is doing well and commented, did nothing wrong and took steps to fix the issues with his clients. But instead, they took it to federal court. Now, we have his comments for you today on the podcast, and that is in audio. And so, but just so you know, the article in the New York Times, and if I could find it for you and share it, according to, and this is the story in the New York Times. I read it rather quickly. It says, "Prolific challenger of Trump's ballot eligibility faces federal tax charges," and this is how this. And the story was quite sensational, but it was quite disrespectful. Listen to the article. It says, "A long shot Republican presidential candidate." Well, maybe he's a long shot. We don't know. And Obama was a long shot as well. But a long shot Republican presidential candidate who has repeatedly and so far unsuccessfully tried to have Donald J. Trump thrown off the primary ballot was arrested this week on federal charges of preparing false tax returns for clients. Now, the candidate, John Anthony Castro, the presidential candidate, John Anthony Castro, faces 33 felony counts of aiding and assisting in the preparation and presentation of a false and fraudulent return. Now, each count carries a sentence of up to 3 years in prison if he is convicted. We will talk about that. Court records show that the prosecutors filed an indictment on Mr. Trump on the seal on January 3rd, but it's not available to the public. And it's according to Mr. Castro, it's 33 counts and 17 clients. So it's 33 counts, but 17 clients, each amounting to about $3,000 to $6,000, and it has to do with a tax deduction issue where his clients try to claim a deduction which they didn't qualify to get. They didn't benefit for the deduction. But according to Mr. Castro, he found out about the error and tried to take steps to fix it. But instead, they went around around that, they and went straight to the federal court or to the federal government to file this allegation. But we'll talk more about that. If he talks more about that, he goes in depth. This is the Neoliberal podcast.
It's going to be pretty swift. The good thing is that once I get acquitted and once I prove that all this is bogus, it exposes the government now to a lawsuit for malicious prosecution, and then it allows us to investigate the IRS and try to discover who ordered this, when did they order it. And here's the thing: I filed a lawsuit about this 6 months ago, accusing the Trump White House of coordinating with the IRS. And 3 months ago, Donald Trump's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss claiming presidential immunity. And literally just the night before last, I filed a notice with the court when the D.C. Circuit ruled against Trump and held that he could be held civilly liable for acts that fall outside the scope of his official duties, or when those acts are specifically criminalized by another statute, which 26 U.S.C. 7217 specifically says it is a felony for anybody in the White House, including the President of the United States, to coordinate with anyone at the Internal Revenue Service to target a particular taxpayer. And so, it's very clear here that the night before last, I filed a document making it clear that the court had to allow this case to proceed to trial, which would allow me to then subpoena Trump White House documents regarding communications with the IRS. And then the very next morning, my home is completely swarmed and surrounded by armed federal agents, banging on my door, making my daughter cry, and for preparing a false return. Like, you really need assault weapons for somebody that is accused of preparing a return that had false information. It's ridiculous. But it was clearly an intimidation tactic, and unfortunately what they don't know about me is when they do things like this, it just emboldens me even more. I'm not going to back down. So, yeah, we'll have to. I know that I'm going to beat the charge, and I'm actually looking forward to assembling a legal team and absolutely crushing them on this, and then going after them for malicious prosecution.
Okay, I was very when I saw the news. I said there must be more to it. So it must be more, but it's kind of weird that they sent federal agents over this particular issue. And because somebody had said they think someone had sent a tweet. His name is Alex Zolin, and he actually said that it appears it was the culmination of a 3-year undercover investigation into Castro. He apparently has been suing the IRS over it, and they had to wait for the civil case to resolve, which it just did last month, before they could take him into custody. Is that true?
Well, yes. So we had sued the agent for violating Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code, and then the lower court judge ruled in his favor. And then after that, I appealed it to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, and then they upheld it because they said, well, the law is established in the Fifth Circuit, but there's a split because the Eighth Circuit has held that when an IRS agent does that, he's not eligible for the good faith exception. And so I petitioned the Fifth Circuit to stay the mandate while I prepared the writ of certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we're literally still working on that right now. And I don't know what their excuse is or where that person would have gotten that information. Yeah. But it makes a little sense. But again, I don't know. Was that a reporter or
it's someone on Twitter called Alex Zolin, who actually tweeted the New York Times report and included you and me. He had included it in a report, and I responded to it. Let me see if I'm going to find it for you right now and quote what he had said, because he included us into the email. He said, it appears it was, he said that he said he looked remarkably composed for having just been indicted on 33 federal felony charges, and then he posted a link to the New York Times article.
Okay, yeah. There was one person that had reached out, and she reached out to us in 2018. Apparently, she was working with the IRS, even though she worked for some capital management company. So I don't know if they had her on tax fraud and told her to contact us, to get a lighter sentence. We'll have to figure out, what she was promised. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she completely lied because she gave us information regarding, her vehicle, which was some other information, and I mean, she didn't provide it to me. The IRS claims there's a recorded call, so we're hoping to get not hoping, we know we're going to get a copy of that recording, but she never spoke with me. She spoke with an employee who gathered the information, and then we would have claimed those expenses as deductions, and so we still have to figure out all the details, but for her to have claimed that she never reviewed the return before it was processed with the IRS, that's completely false, because I mean the facts just contradict that. Like, we have evidence that she got an ID Verify letter. Our office manager reached out to her, as he always does in these types of cases, and said, oh, here's a copy of the return, you have to contact the IRS and verify the content of the return. She verified it. She never objected to the deductions that were there, that were clearly listed, and then and that's it. Never contacted us again, and it was clearly that it wasn't some sort of like an undercover sting operation. Okay. The goal was to give us information. We prepared the return based on that information, and then she lied to the IRS and said we never provided that information. Okay. But we're going to be able to clearly prove. And then she also said that she never saw the return before the IRS processed it. And again, that's verifiably false. So yeah, I mean, we're going to easily beat this in court. But
the article,
obviously my enemies are going to take advantage of this to say, like, oh, see, he's a dishonest person, and nobody should believe him or any of his cases. So they're trying to discredit me, and it's political retaliation.
Obviously, you are onto something major, with the fact that they are now trying everything to discredit you and to diminish you.
Yeah, I mean, just it's kind of weird, but literally, it's almost to the point where if you're not politically important, I mean, if you're not indicted, you're not politically important, right? Like, they're going after the president of the United States, his son. He's indicted. Trump's indicted. I'm indicted. It's just like, it looks like indictment is a prerequisite to being a presidential candidate now.
Yes. But, so right now, they said you were taken into custody, but you are not in custody.
Correct. Yeah, it's standard process. So they just had to detain me. I went down. They processed the paperwork, gave me a copy of the indictment, and then I went home. So I woke up in my house. I went to sleep in my house that same day. I was home by 3 p.m. 3 or 4 p.m. I was home. So yeah, other than midday, I still tucked my kids in at night, put them to bed.
But you see how, New York Times is crazy. I mean, this story written by Mitch Smith and Jenna Russell, dated January 10, says, a long shot Republican presidential candidate who has repeatedly and so far unsuccessfully tried to have Donald J. Trump thrown off the primary ballot was arrested this week on federal charges of preparing false tax returns for clients. The candidate, John Castro, faces 33 felony counts of aiding and assisting in the preparation and presentation of a false and fraudulent return. Each count carries a sentence of up to 3 years in prison if he is convicted. Says court records show that prosecutors filed an indictment of Mr. Castro on the seal on January 3rd. That same day, Mr. Castro represented himself in a New Hampshire courtroom, appearing without a lawyer to contest Mr. Trump's eligibility. And then he said the records in the criminal case against Mr. Castro, which are now public, show that he was arrested by a federal agent on Tuesday and was released after making an initial appearance in federal court in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, I read the article.
Oh, okay. So, but
Jenna Russell reached out to me. She called me first thing this morning at like 7:30 a.m. as I was walking to the office, and so she wanted to know my side of the story. So I told her, I was just like, it's obvious. It's retaliation. But I told her, I was like, this is nothing new. I had been in discussions with the IRS on this since 2020. So the fact that they waited 4 years or 3 years to bring this is odd, because we had already gone over it very thoroughly. And again, the people that are named there, it's 33 counts, but it's 17 clients. 17 clients out of like 1,500 clients that we have are basically saying he didn't explain this deduction correctly to us, and so we claimed it, and it was wrong. But then he reached out to us, informed us of the mistake, but then Tuan Ma intervened and was just like, no, don't contact him, let's indict him. And so basically I reached out to them trying to fix the issue and letting them know, hey guys, I think you claimed this deduction, you weren't eligible for it. I mean, we're talking minuscule amounts like 3,000, 6,000. You know, it's not like $1 million deduction or something like that. You know, these are average working class individuals. You know, making $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they basically just misunderstood a deduction. And then we let them know about it. We sought to correct it, and then that's when the IRS intervened and tried to exploit the situation to try to make it seem like we deceived them. And it's just like, no, we didn't deceive them. There's evidence that we emailed them. We have actual evidence that they opened up the emails because the email that we sent out had a tracker, and that's, I think, something the IRS doesn't realize is that those emails had trackers, so we know who opened the email and when. And about 3/4 of the people they listed, of the 17, I would say it was about 12. 12 of them got the email and opened it. One of them actually opened up the email and read it 44 separate times and never contacted us. So that's something that they don't realize, that we have that. And so when that person has to take the stand, you know, we get to cross-examine them and say, we have evidence you opened up this email 44 times. Why did you never call us when we were repeatedly telling you, we think there's an error on your return, you misunderstood this deduction. So, and we know what the answer is, right? You know, Tuan Ma and all these Trump cronies were basically telling them, don't contact him because we want to try to charge him on this. And yeah, it's completely bogus.
Okay, you know, and I've been working in business since 2016, and I have made a lot of trial and error. I've made some errors, so I understand. So, but they're making it sound really major. But by the way, according to the report, it says that that court records show that you plan to hire a lawyer to defend yourself or something to defend yourself, and that I'm actually interviewing lawyers starting tomorrow, and it's not just going to be one. We're putting together a whole legal team. You know, so you usually have like one attorney that's local, that knows the judge very well, knows how he operates, and so that way he can function very. He can advise on functioning in that judge's courtroom, and then you're going to have a pretrial expert that focuses on evidence, and then we're going to have the lead trial attorney, the one that is actually going to make the case before the jury. Because I've already told everybody, I don't care what they offer. They could offer me 1 day probation, and then they'll expunge my record afterwards, and it'll never show up on my record again. It doesn't matter. I'm taking this to trial because we know we did nothing wrong. We know all the corrective actions that we took, and yeah, everything they're claiming is total BS. Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I understand you have a case next week.
Oh no. Next Wednesday is the arraignment. That's where you have to show up and you formally plead not guilty, and then the attorneys formally enter their appearance, you know, as your attorneys of record. And then that's when the judge issues the schedule order, says, okay, there's going to be X number of days for, you know, evidentiary pretrial, you know, disclosure, stuff like that. And then they also set the official, like, you know, trial date, whether it's going to be a trial by judge or trial by jury. We're obviously going to elect a trial by jury, and all that stuff. So it's kind of like an administrative hearing, you know, just to get the case kind of moving along.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that. I completely understand what's going on. When I saw the news, I was concerned, so I said, let me give you a call, find out what's going on. Well, I hope that it works out and that it will be resolved, and it does not serve to derail what the work that you're doing, or to focus on what you're trying to do in terms of holding Mr. Donald Trump accountable based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and so on, because it seems as if that probably is going to create a problem for that.
Yeah. No, I'm not letting it interfere. I spoke with the court today, and they let me know that they're not seeking in any way to inhibit, because at first they had said that I wasn't allowed to leave the Northern District of Texas, which sounded like they were trying to interfere with, you know, my election efforts. But no, they made it clear today that they're going to permit me to travel to Kansas and West Virginia so that I can, you know, process all the documentation to appear on the ballot in those states. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, and please keep in touch. Let's know if there's any new story as it relates to the development. Let me know how you're doing and how this case turns out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then
Sounds good, Renaldo.
and I did record this conversation that you were having so that I could probably carry a little bit of footage for it and to also do a little story on it to correct some of the misunderstanding or the mis things that people have might not be positive. So I'll produce a story and release it shortly. Okay.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much and keep in touch. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I just got off the phone with John Anthony Castro in relation to the news story that was actually sent to me via Twitter. I was included in a story. And in the story it had attached the New York Times article regarding Mr. John Anthony Castro. But of course, Mr. John Anthony Castro is saying it's 33 counts, but 17 clients who are claiming that they were given false information and they filed incorrectly based on the information provided by Mr. Castro, who, according to Mr. Castro, he said that is a misunderstanding. There was a deduction issue that they tried to fix because apparently some clients had made some claim some deduction that they weren't qualified to receive. However, they tried to fix it, but instead of resolving it, they took the chance to take it to court. But he is working on resolving this issue. He's getting an attorney, and we'll continue to follow the story. This is the Neoliberal podcast.